start finding the solution. The first property we're going to study in this section is the zero factor property. So this is the first one, which is the zero factor property. This is the first method. Let's do an example about that, and I'm going to show you what's the meaning of zero factor property. The zero factor property first, if you have two numbers, I'm going to make it easier for you. If you have two parentheses or two numbers, A and B, if A times B equals 0, if the multiplication of these two numbers equals 0, that's mean A equals 0 or B equals 0. I'm going to extend this property if you have two parentheses. Because we're going to use this one. If you have two parentheses and the multiplication of these two parentheses equals 0, that's mean the first parentheses equals 0 or the second parentheses equals 0. Let's do an example about that, how to use the zero factor property. The main idea with this one is to find the solution of the equation, of the quadratic equations. For example, if we have x squared plus 10x minus 24 equals 0. So here is the example. I need to find the solution for this example. The first thing, I have to make sure all the numbers and the variables on this side, the left side, and 0 on the other side. So everything is supposed to be on this side and 0 on the other side. That's why it's called zero factor property. This side is 0. Now, on the other side, on the left side, if you check, we have 1, 2, 3. That means this is trinomial. So I can use the AC method on this part, and I can factor this part by the AC method. So I'm going to say the AC. You see, the important method here is going to be the AC method. This is the A, this is the C. So I'm going to say 1 times 24 is going to be 24. Then I'm going to factor the 24 to two numbers, 1 and 24, 2, 12, 3, 8, 4, 6. How many options do I have here to get 10? I have two options. I have this option and I have this option. I can say 12 minus 2 or negative 2 minus 12, negative 2 plus 12 is going to be 10. And I can say positive 4 plus 6 is going to be also 10. So I can use one of these options. Let's start with this first one. Let's start with 2 plus minus 2 plus 12. If it's work, that's fine. If it's not, I'm going to go to the next option. So I'm going to say x squared minus 2x plus 12x minus 24 is going to be equal to 0. I'm using the AC method. We did a lot of examples on this one last class, so on section R4. So now I have 4 terms. I'm going to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. I'm going to hide this part. What's the common between x squared and 2x? I'm going to do this one on the side. What's the common between x squared, which is x times x, and 2x, which is 2 times x. So the common is the x. The common is the x. So I'm going to take the x out. Open parentheses. Now I'm going to divide. X squared divided by x. That means x times x divided by x. Cancel these. The leftover is just x. So it's going to be x here minus 2x divided by x. You're going to cancel the x. The leftover is just 2. That means it's going to be minus 2. I'm going to close the parentheses. I'm done from the first part here. I'm going to close the first part and check what's the common with 12x and 24. I'm going to do the same thing here. What's the common between 12x, which is 12 times x, and 24, which is 12 times 2. So the common is 12. So I'm going to write down plus 12. Now I'm going to start to divide. 12x divided by 12. 12x divided by 12. Cancel the 12. The leftover just x. I'm going to write down x. Negative 24. Divide by 12. It's going to be negative 2. So I'm going to write down here minus 2. Equal to 0. So if you check, I'm doing the right steps because I got exactly the same parentheses. That's mean this one and this one is going to be x minus 2. And the leftover is going to be x plus 12. Equal 0. Now I'm going, this is the whole thing we start from this step until now. We just have to make sure all the numbers on one side and the variables on the other side always 0. Then I'm going to use the AC method on this side. And that's it. I arrived until here. If you remember the 0 factor property, when I told you if you have 2 parentheses, the multiplication of these 2 parentheses equals 0. That means the first one equals 0 or the second one equals 0. So now the multiplication of these 2 parentheses equals 0. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say that means the first parentheses equals 0 or the second parentheses equal to the 0. Then I'm just going to solve this one and solve this one. I'm going to add 2 here to the both sides. Cancel these. So the leftover from the left side, x equal 2. And on the other side, I'm going to minus 12 from both sides. So cancel these. X is going to be equal negative 12. That means these are the 2 solutions for this example. We have just to do one more step and we're going to finish. To make sure we got the right solution, we have to do a check. This is the first solution, x equal 2. And this is the second solution, x equal to 12, negative 12. Because sometimes one of these solutions is not going to work. Sometimes both of these solutions is not going to work. Sometimes both is going to work. So we have to check each solution. How are we going to check each solution? By plugging the number I got here, x equal 2, instead of each x. So I'm going to plug in this one here. I have x squared plus 10x minus 24. I have to get the result equals 0. So I'm going to plug in 2 instead of each x. So it's going to be 2 squared plus 10 times 2 minus 24. I have to get 0. 2 squared is going to be 4. Plus 10 times 2 is going to be 20. Minus 24. 4 plus 20 is going to be 24. 24 minus 24 is going to be 0. That means 0 equals 0. You see, I got 2 equal sides. That means this is a solution for this problem. To do this easiest, you don't have to do these steps. You can't use the calculator. To make everything easier for you, you see? So I'm going to plug in exactly the same thing. These steps here. Plug in the 2 instead of each x, then open parentheses. I'm going to say 2, close the parentheses. This is the square. Remember when you write down the root, the exponents, it's going to be 2 plus 10 parentheses times 2 minus 24. The result is going to be 0. So that means this is going to be a solution. Let's check the other side. I'm going to plug in the other side with x equal negative 12, exactly the same thing here. X squared plus 10x minus 24 is supposed to be equal to the 0. So I'm going to plug in here negative 12. So negative 12 with parentheses squared plus 10 times negative 12 minus 24 is supposed to be equal 0. You see, from this part, I can plug in everything in the calculator. So I'm going to parentheses, check, here is the negative sign here. This is the negative sign. So negative 12 squared plus 10 times negative 12, close the parentheses, minus 24, the result is going to be 0. That means both sides are going to be 0, so this one also is going to be a solution. Let's do these steps. Negative 12 squared is going to be positive 144 plus 10 times negative 12 is going to be negative 120 minus 24 is going to be equal 0. 144 minus 120 is going to be positive 24. Positive 24 minus 24 is going to be 0. That means 0 is going to be equal 0. That means when x equal negative 12 is also going to be a solution for this problem. Again, this check is really important because sometimes one of these solutions, you're going to get 2 different sides, like 4 equals 0. That means going to be this part is not a solution. So you have to check every part, and it's easy for you to check using the calculator. But they're just going to ask you find the solution for this problem. So every time when they ask you find the solution, we're going to use zero factor property. I have to make sure all the numbers on one side. On the other side, the right side, always 0. So the right side here is not 0. So I'm going to move this number to the other side. So I'm going to say negative 3 from both sides. You say minus 3 from here, minus 3 from here. So it's going to be 6x squared plus 7x minus 3 is going to be equal to the 0. You see, this is the important thing. You have to move all the numbers to one side. I can't combine the 7x with the 3 because they are totally different terms. So I have to write down like this. Next step, I have 1, 2, 3. We're going to use the AC method to factor this trinomial. So here is the AC method. 6 times 3 is going to be 18. Let's factor the 18 to two numbers. 118, 2936. That's the only option. Which option I'm going to use to get 7? I have to use the only second option if I said -2 plus 9. -2 plus 9 is going to be +7. So here is going to be 6x squared minus 2x plus 9x minus 3 is going to be equal to 0. Now the next step, we have 4 terms. We're going to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. We're doing exactly the same steps about the AC method. We didn't, just the last step, it's new steps for you. So we're going to hide this one. Now I need to find the common between 6x squared, which is 2 times 3x times x, and 2x, which is 2 times x. The common is 2, and the variable is x. So the common between these 2 terms is 2x. So I'm going to write down here 2x and open parentheses. Now we have to divide. 6x squared divided by 2x. 6x squared divided by 2x. That means 6 times x divided by 2x. 6 divided by 2 is going to be 3. Cancel 1x is going to be 3x. So here is going to be 3x minus 2x divided by 2x. 2 divided by 2, cancel the x's. 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1. So it's going to be 1 here. We're going to close the parentheses. We're done from the first part. Let's go to the second part, which is what's the common between 9x and 3? So 9x, which is 3 times 3, and here's the x. 3, which is just a 3. So the common is just 3. So I'm going to write down plus 3 here and open parentheses. We're going to divide now. 9x divided by 3. 9 divided by 3 is going to be 3, and here's the x. So it's going to be 3x. -3 divided by 3 is going to be -1. So it's going to be -1. I'm done from these. Now, I already know I have the right solution because I have exactly the same parentheses. So I'm going to write down 3x minus 1 and the leftover 2x plus 3 equal to 0. Now, this is the 0 factor property. I have 2 parentheses. The multiplication of these 2 parentheses equals 0. That means I have 2 solutions. The first one, I'm going to write down -3x minus 1 is going to be equal to 0. And on the other side, I'm going to write down the second parentheses, which is 2x plus 3 is going to be equal to 0. How are we going to solve this one as a linear equations? We're going to add 1 to the both sides. So it's going to be 3x equal 1 because these cancel. Then I have 3x equal 1. I need to find the value of x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3, by the number beside the variable. Cancel these. So x is going to be equal 1/3. This is the first solution. Let's check the second solution. We're going to do exactly the same steps. We're going to minus 3 from both sides. So it's going to be 2x, these cancel, equal -3. Then we're going to divide both sides by 2, by the number beside the variable. So x, because these cancel, x is going to be equal -3/2. This is the second solution. We need also to check these two solutions. When x equal 1/3, let's minimize this one, maximize this one. So I'm going to plug in. Here's the main equations: 6x squared plus 7x minus 3 is going to be equal 0. So I'm just going to plug in this number, x equal 1/3 here. Let me show you how you're going to plug in that. You're going to do exactly the same thing. 6 parentheses 1/3 squared plus 7 1/3 minus 3 is supposed to be equal to 0. How to plug in that? It's going to be 6 parentheses 1/3. How are you going to write down this fraction? Write down 1, divide by 3, close the parentheses, and put down the squared. Plus 7 1/3, also parentheses, 1 divide by 3, close the parentheses, minus 3. This is not equal to the 0. 6 1/3 squared plus 7 times 1/3 minus 3 is not equal to the 0. That's mean when x equal 1/3 is not, because this one is -3.3 equals 0. That means this is not equal 0. So you're just gonna write down this is not a solution. Let's check the second part, when x equal -3/2. We have to get exactly the same solution. So I'm gonna plug in exactly the same way. 6, this is 6x squared plus 7x minus 3 is supposed to be equal 0. Now I'm gonna plug in 6 times -2/3, -3/2, sorry. Squared plus 7 times -3/2 minus 3 is supposed to be equal 0. Let's find how much the result from this side. 6 parentheses -3 divided by 2, close the parentheses, squared plus 7 parentheses -3 divided by 2, close the parentheses, minus 3, the result equals 0. That means this side equal 0 is going to be equal 0. That means this is the only solution. You see, I have two solutions, but when I check the first solution, when x equal 1/3, I got two different sides. That means this is not a solution. When I check the other side, I found I have two equal sides. That means this is going to be a solution. So always you have to check your solutions. Second property is the square root property. And they're going to ask you to use the square root property. So for example, if we have x squared equal -16, x squared equal -16, how I'm going to use the square root property? That means square root, they're telling you, go ahead and take the square root for both sides. So I'm going to take the square root for both sides. That means it's going to be the square root for this side equal the square root for the second side. Taking the square root for both sides. On this side, if you remember, when there is no root, that means it's square root. So this is the square root. I'm just going to cancel this root with this exponent. The leftover is just the x by itself. So here's the steps. Let's do the steps from the beginning. Square root property. That means go ahead and take the square root for both sides. Square root for x squared, square root for -16. Cancel the 2 with the root, the leftover just the x. And that's what I need to find, the value of x. X equal, the other side is square root of 16. How are we going to find the square root of 16? We're going to do exactly the same method. Square root, that means the number here is even. 2, which is even root. So if I have even root, I'm going to take the negative sign out as an I. So here's the I. And the leftover square root of 16. Then I'm going to take the square root of 16, which is going to be always when you're taking the root, you have to put 2 signs, which is a plus and minus. So x is going to be, always I'm going to put plus or minus. The square root of 16 is going to be 4, and here's the I. That's the value of x. So don't forget, always when you're taking the square root, don't forget that you're going to put plus or minus. And the negative sign goes out as an I. The square root of 16 is going to be 4. Let's do another example about that, which is a really important example. The next one, which is exactly the same thing here. If we have x plus 5 squared equal 16. And they're going to tell you to use the square root property. That means you're going to take the square root for both sides. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. Check what I'm going to do. Square root of x plus 5 squared equal square root of 16. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Cancel the root with the exponents. The leftover here is just x plus 5. X plus 5 equal, I'm going to take the square root of 16. Don't forget to put a plus or minus. The square root of 16 is going to be 4. On this part, we're going to get 2 solutions. You're going to get 2 solutions. Why? Because always, when you're taking the square root of a number with an equation, don't forget to put a plus or minus. Because in this case, if you say positive 4 times positive 4 is going to be 16. Negative 4 times negative 4 is going to be 16. That's why you have negative 4 times negative 4 is going to be 16. That means negative 4 is a root for 16. Positive 4 times positive 4 is going to be 16. That means the 4 is also a root for 16. So we have 2 solutions, positive, negative. So the first one I'm going to write down here, x plus 5 equal 4, the positive 4. And on the other side, I'm going to write down x positive 5 or plus 5 equal negative 4. Solve this one to find the solution. How are we going to solve this one? By minus 5 from both sides. Cancel these, so x is going to be equal to -1. How to solve this one? By minus 5 also from both sides. Cancel these, so x is going to be equal to -9. So we get two solutions for this problem. Nine x plus 7 squared equal 11. Going to do the same thing because they're going to ask you to use square root of property. That means I'm going to take the square root for both sides. For 9x plus 7 squared equal the square root of 11. Cancel the square root with the exponents 2. The leftover is going to be 9x plus 7 equal, don't forget to put a plus or minus here, the square root of 11. If you check, you can't find the square root of 11, so just keep it like this. Now, I need to do exactly the same thing with the linear by finding the value of x. So I'm going to say minus 7 from both sides. These cancel. The leftover is going to be 9x equal plus or minus square root of 11 minus 7. I can't add these two numbers because this one with the root, this one without root, so just keep it like this. Now, next step, I need to leave the x by itself, so I'm going to divide both sides by 9. So cancel these, x is going to be equal plus or minus square root of 11 minus 7 divided by 9. That's it. This is going to be the solution because you can't write down a decimal on the MATLAB Plus, but you can write down that like this exactly: square root plus or minus square root of 11 minus 7 over 9 is going to be the solution. This is the last example about how to use the square root of property. We just have one property about how to do the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is to find the solution for any problem if you can't use the AC method. So always, if you can't use the AC method, you're going to use the quadratic formula. How to use the quadratic formula? Let's first of all write down the formula. So any quadratic equations is going to be with this form. First of all, let's write down the third property is the quadratic formula. So before that, any quadratic equations, then we take this form, which is x squared plus bx plus c equal to the 0. So you have to make sure everything on this side. A is the coefficient with the x squared, b is the coefficient with the x, c is the number by itself. I have to make sure everything written exactly the same thing. If you have a number here, you have to move it to the side. So here's the formula. If you can't use the AC method to find the solution, you can't factor this part, you're going to use this formula, which is x equal negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c over 2 times a. So this is the quadratic formula. Again, when are we going to use the quadratic formula? If you can't use the AC method here, you have to locate the A, the B, and the C. Then you're going to use the A and the B and C to find the value of X by using this formula. So let's do this example. 5x squared plus 12x minus 6. Let's do it. Equal -6. Always the first thing I have to make sure all the numbers and the terms on one side. I have to move the 6 to this side, so I'm going to add 6 to the both sides. So this one is going to be, these cancel. So it's going to be 5x squared plus 12x minus plus 6 is going to be 0. I can't use the AC method, or sometimes they're going to ask you to use a quadratic formula. So let's use this one by using a quadratic formula. This is the A, this is the B, and this is the C. The formula says x equal -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 AC divided by 2 times A. Now we're just going to plug in A, B, and C. A equal 5, B equal 12, and C equals 6. We're going to plug in these numbers here. So X is going to be equal to negative B, how much the B? 12, plus or minus the square root of B squared, that means 12 squared minus 4 times A equal 5 times C equal 6 divided by 2 times A equal 5. You see everything on this side number, there is no variable. The only variable here, X equal, so I just have to simplify it. This is -12 plus, I have to simplify everything here inside the square root. 12 squared is 144 minus 20 times 6. How much is going to be 20 for, let's say 30 here. So it's going to be 120. Multiply. I'm going to give you another method to how to find if it's just a root. So it's going to be here 120 over 2 times 5 is going to be 10. So X is going to be equal -12 plus or minus, here is the square root, 144 minus 20 is going to be positive 24 over 10. So now we have to simplify. How are we going to simplify that? You can use the calculator here to find this result from, like, to save steps. You're going to jump from here to find it's a square root of 24. If you want to find the square root of 24 by using the calculator, you can't, because you're going to get a decimal number. That's why you have to use this method, which is, we already learned how to find the square root of any number. Let's do it here on this side. To find the square root of 24 is going to be equal. You're just going to write down the 24. Divided by 2 is going to be 12. 12 by 2 is going to be 6. 6 by 2 is going to be 3. 3 by 3 is going to be 1. Every two similar number, because its square root is going to be 1, and the left over two different numbers. Here is the 2, and the two different numbers, 2 times 3 is going to be 6. So the square root of 24 is going to be 2 square root of 6. That means x is going to be equal to -12 plus or minus, and instead of 24, I'm going to write down 2 square root of 6 over 10. Now, if you check on the top part, we have a common between -12 and 2 square root of 6. Let's find this common. The common is, because 12 is 2 times 6, 2 square root of 6 is going to be 2 times square root of 6. I have common, which is the 2. So I'm going to take x is going to be equal to 2 out, open parentheses. Now we're going to divide. -12 divided by 2 is going to be -6. So I'm going to write down here -6. 2 square root of 6 divided by 2, cancel the 2, is going to be plus or minus just the square root of 6. So it's going to be square root of 6 on this side over 10. Simplify these two, 2 over 10. If you divide 2 by 2, it's going to be 1. If you divide 10 by 2, it's going to be 5. Like it's exactly the same thing when you have 2 over 10. How are we going to simplify it? Divide this one by 2, divide this one by 2, is going to be 1 over 5. So it's going to be 1 over 5. So the final result is going to be x is going to be equal -6 plus or minus square root of 6 divided by 5. This is the solution for this example.
1, 2. Whereas -12 minus plus the one that is under.
Oh, this one?
That one.
Okay.
How do you get the 6?
How I get the 6? You
Yes.
see the 24?
Yes.
I'm going to find the square root of 24 here on the side. How 24 divided by 2 is going to be 12. 12 by 2 is going to be 6. 6 by 2 is going to be 3. 3 by 3 is going to be 1. Square root does mean I'm going to take these two numbers as a 1, which is going to be here outside. Okay. I have two left number, two different numbers. So I'm going to multiply. 2 times 3 is going to be 6. Okay, which is under the root. You got it?
Yes, I got it.
So again, this is you have to do the homeworks for this section. So you're going to practice about how we're going to solve the examples. Also, if you have any questions, you can text me anytime through Canvas so I can solve it for you and send it back with the steps.